Thanks very much. It's a great pleasure to be here, and please, mayors, join me on the stage. It's so important to have chief executives who are demonstrating leadership and working hard day in and day out in a very practical way, addressing the challenges of post-industrial cities that we call legacy cities. So I am joined by, at the far left, Mayor Bill Peduto of Pittsburgh, and to my immediate left, Rob van Gijzel from the city of Eindhoven in the Netherlands. So first of all, mayors, have you had a hackathon recently in either of your cities? Or are you going to be?
We have. Yeah, in fact, we have a few per year. We've actually started to partner with our city government, a new director of innovation and performance, so that what's being produced isn't just ending up going out into the air, but actually being utilized by the city.
Fantastic. A word about the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy. We are a think tank in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We're concerned with cities and the fiscal health of cities, land use, and the taxation of land. We're joined today by our new president, George W. McCarthy, better known as Mac, who has joined us this summer from the Ford Foundation. So we'll be here to network with you throughout the course of the conference. One of the things that we've been focused on is the fiscal health of cities, and one database that we've developed is called Fiscally Standardized Cities, that allows cross-cutting comparisons among 112 cities and their budgets, their revenues. It's done in a way that allows us to compare apples to apples as we forge ahead in these very difficult times. The other initiative that we have is the Legacy Cities Initiative, and there's a report, Regenerating America's Legacy Cities, which is available out at the table around lunchtime. One of the themes of the report is this idea of strategic incrementalism, and whether it's advantageous to think about smaller steps versus big plans. I was recently in St. Louis, where I saw some of this borne out on Washington Avenue, just wonderful regeneration of the garment district buildings that have been turned into business incubators. And it's wonderful to go there today in St. Louis. But that kind of regeneration only goes so far in terms of the number of jobs, the type of jobs, as software and other startups look to places like St. Louis as an alternative to Silicon Valley or New York, Boston. There was another big plan, which was on the ruins of the Pruitt-Igoe housing complex, where the mayor was investing a lot of energy into trying to lure the Department of Defense facility, that is the sort of the eyes and ears of the Defense Department, to locate there on the north side of St. Louis on a 100-acre parcel that would, it is hoped, be part of a larger regeneration on the north side. But this is thousands of jobs, but that's a big bet. And so this, I thought, would be a good framework to start out with, this idea of the big bet and big plans versus more incremental steps. So Mayor Peduto, let me start with you. Tell the short history of Pittsburgh and how you got here, and then perhaps if you could give me an example of those incremental kinds of steps.
Sure. So it's kind of appropriate because 1979 was a big year for Pittsburgh. It's when the Pirates won the World Series, and they're in the playoffs today. It is the beginning of Bucktober. It's when the Steelers won their 4th Super Bowl, and it's when Pittsburgh died. We died. We went through a collapse that not many cities have ever seen. But You know, the thing about cities, you can burn them, you can bond them, you can flood them, you can rip the economic heart out of them. Cities have a way of coming back. We call it resiliency now, but back then it was just what was the game plan. So our economy was transformed. I mean, we went from about 30% manufacturing base to less than 10% in a decade. We lost more people than New Orleans lost after Katrina. But at that same time, there were people who were thinking not about how we're going to reopen the mills, but what would the next Pittsburgh look like? And it wasn't coming from the standard. It wasn't coming from government. It wasn't coming really out of the large corporations. It was being fueled by the foundation community, the nonprofits, and the universities and the hospitals. So when the president of CMU was saying why Pittsburgh should be one of the first cities in America to create a supercomputer center, it was really in a way that others weren't even thinking about. When we started to invest in life sciences and building out a medical industry, it wasn't the message that politicians were taking about their plan to reopen the mills. But what happened during that time in the foundations, never letting culture and the arts slip away, but actually investing more and doubling down and creating the Warhol Museum and other cultural amenities within the city. What was happening is they were planting seeds that would take 30 years to take root. And today what we see is the benefit of that. Pittsburgh is back, our economy is back, it's diversified. But if we had gone through the standard measures of playing it to what we were instead of what we could become, I don't know if Pittsburgh's story would be that much different than what Detroit is facing right now.
Mayor van Gijzel, what would have been the initiatives that you could describe as incremental, as a longer-term vision, or someplace in between?
Well, it's really differs over the last couple of years, over the decades. Maybe there's a point you were telling something about the Pirates. We won the European Champion League with PSV in '88, and then we turned down economically.
Yeah.
So never win a national bowl, I would say.
There's definitely a pattern here.
Well, Eindhoven, the city of Eindhoven is the cradle of the Philips company. So we had over 50,000 labor jobs of the Philips company in our city. Quite a lot of them went away in the 70s and the 80s to South America and Asia. And in the mid-90s, in 2 years' time, we lost 36,000 jobs on the 110,000 in the city itself, a third of all the labor places. And that it forced us to get another approach. We started with a new focus. We said, what is the city? The city is the city of high technology and design. That's very important. You cannot do them all. And then we reorganized. That's the first stage. We said something that is very special. We said, okay, we bring money together from the different villages and cities in our region, make a fund, double it with European contribution, and we asked the entrepreneurs to make proposals. And who was going to decide about these proposals? A committee of entrepreneurs and our Knowledge Institute, not the government, although it was public money. And there he started with a kind of trust for the different parties and the triple helix structure. That was the first stage. The second one is that then we had to go on, and then we made a program to get it. This is a program line. So the first one was incremental. The second one was a program line, and that is, we made a program on basics, that's infrastructure, all kind of infrastructure, broadband, that kind of things, roads, railroads. People, it's about education, but labor market as well. Technology, it's about new technology. And then the last one is business. Making money with the knowledge you got. We got more knowledge than in Korea. That's based on OECD figures, but they earn more money than we do. They get less knowledge. So we are doing something wrong. And now there is a third step we are doing. We call it the next generation. And maybe I may explain what's the essence of it. This morning you heard here from Shell that within 15, 20 years, 80% of all the people will live in cities. If it's your city, I don't know, but they will live in urban situations. So we as mayors got the obligation, the assignment, to get housing, sewers, and that kind of things, education, public transport systems. And in the meanwhile, we know that all our systems on this moment are not the systems you can use in the future. We need a transition. That's a huge task. And the third one is that, well, these new systems, it should be based on open sources, it should be accessible for everyone, it should be cheaper, and it should be sustainable and that kind of things. And we know another thing. We will not do it top-down, because we have to do it with our stakeholders in the city itself. The people, the institutes, the knowledge institutes, the companies, and the government all together. So there will not be a top-down, and if there's not a top-down, there is no bottom-up. Because when there is no top, you cannot go bottom-up. So we have to do it horizontally. And no national government can organize that. The only one who can organize that is a mayor in the city, and this is a bit about Benjamin Barber, what he wrote in the book, If the Mayors Would Rule the World, and that's the essence of his book. We have, as mayors and as people, as citizens, a huge obligation to organize ourselves on a complete new way. And that will be disruptive, because we cannot wait to new solutions. We know the problems, and we have to work out on new solutions. Well, that's our program. I later on I'll tell a little bit more about it. Our program on next generation. So we started incremental, then on a program based, and now it's really disruptive what we try to do and to enforce new way of working, new products, new processes.
It's interesting to think about these cities and what they're best known for. Of course, Mayor Peduto, the steel industry being the foundation for so long. There's a different vision now, is there not, about what would you like people to think of what Pittsburgh is known for today?
Well, it was never steel. It was the Bessemer process that was able to produce the steel. It was innovation. It was Carnegie understanding that the mines in the Midwest and the coal from West Virginia could be transported into systems, and owning all those systems could make Pittsburgh the world's leader in the production of steel. Innovation's what led George Westinghouse to invent the air brake and the inventions that he created. And innovation is what is really driving Pittsburgh's rebirth. It is coming through collaborations that nobody put down on paper. The University of Pittsburgh Medical Center's surgeons and doctors working with Carnegie Mellon University engineers in robotics to create the next generation of healthcare, and how a small micro robot can walk on your heart during open heart surgery to be able to make sure that it's working properly. It's the changes of understanding what it is today and the capability of building something for tomorrow. And where Pittsburgh's at a competitive advantage, I would say, on a worldwide basis, is, we compete against places like Austin and Boston and Silicon Valley for tech and research. But we also have a history and a legacy of making things. We build things. And the combination for the future between research and development and the practical ability to make things is what will put legacy cities like Pittsburgh, like Detroit, like Cleveland, back on the world map.
And universities and medical centers, very quickly, big partners.
Yeah, no, we're working right now with the Sheet Metals Workers Union and Carnegie Mellon University to help the engineers in robotics come up with the designs and the plans of what they need and the practical application to do it. Our operating engineers are working hand in hand with the Green Building Alliance as we look beyond LEED certification into living buildings, so that people are being trained to be able to create the maintenance programs and have even better paying jobs. And the combination now between the Sierra Club and the Steelworkers Union of looking at areas like wind turbines and the construction of them in order to be able not to fight on these issues anymore, but work together. That's the next great step, the ability of not only designing it and building it, but also bringing the groups together that in the past may have been at odds.
Mayor von Gijzel, I'm wondering, what is your relationship now with Philips, given that the jobs went away in such great numbers? And do you feel a similar reinvention or rebranding of what Eindhoven would be best known for going forward?
Yeah, well, what we are, the Philips Research Development central activities are still Eindhoven. So they got the high-tech campus in Eindhoven, but it's an open innovation campus now. In the past, Philips protected their own ideas and patents, and now I myself went to Samsung and tried to convince to come to Eindhoven as well, to collaborate with Philips because of, well, you must see, half of the products of the Philips company were not available in the market 2 years ago. So the life cycle of products, technological products, is very, very short. And then you don't have an upgrade, you got a new product. So the investments are high, the risks are high, you need very high skilled people. So what we do is working together on R&D, and because of this, and then we make standards, and we speed up the processes to the market, from the start to the market. It's beneficial for all the partners who are involved. Of course, it's a question of trust. And what you see here between Samsung and Philips is about trust. Of course, we got an intellectual property management bureau there that's describing everything. But the real purpose of what we are doing here together is that we realize that we cannot do it by ourselves. We have to help each other. Of course, what is going on in Pittsburgh is very significant and very important, but they cannot do everything, and we can do either. So we are doing things on mechatronics, on photonics, that kind of things, machineries, but he is doing other things. So we have to join. And this is the real essence of interdependency. And that's real changing the world. Until now, we had an attitude of close relation. I mean, what I really mean is we were sitting there as a span of control instead of a span of support. Now we are on span of support. We were in competition instead of collaboration. We were in a closed mind instead of an open mind. So these kind of things have to be changed because there is such a huge interdependency now that we have to open our attitude. And that's the only way we can work this out. I got 5 eyes about collaboration together worldwide. And the first one is on industries. I already told something about the open innovation. We're working on 4.0 industry. Germany is leading. And the last one is Internet of Things, the cooperation between stuff. The second one is intersectoral collaboration. The earned capacity from high-tech is not high. So it's high-tech and medical, it's high-tech and mobility, it's high-tech and light, that kind of things. And the third one is a very important one, and it's great that I can be here and can say it here, it's design. It's an interdisciplinary approach. We need people to look on the other way to the problems to get other solutions. And for example, Helsinki was coming this morning here, and in Helsinki, the departments do have designers. And I'm doing so for several parts as well. The toolkit of a mayor is normally, well, you get shields and you get laws and measurements and that kind of things, but we have to organize society on a complete different way. And I ask designers to advise me how I can do it on a complete new way, on a different way. And that's rather successful. They did a couple of projects, and it's very successful, that approach. Well, interdisciplinary is inclusive is the fourth one, and inclusive is, we all talk about end users. There are no end users anymore. They're begin users. Because when you start to make a product, and you will not involve the consumers from the beginning, or the ordering parties at the beginning in the whole traject, then it will go wrong. That's for sure. And the last one is, and already all said something about it, international collaboration. We are working very close together with our friends in Taipei, our friends in the Canadian Technological Triangle, and what we are doing is we exchange experiences on high-tech. We all are high-tech related experiences, way of organizing, giving insights in development from the different companies, bring them together, do research and development, and help each other to interfere in the different markets, in the American market, European market, and from Taiwan to the Chinese market. And I think that's very important to see it done that way.
Mayor Peduto, on the subject of inclusion, you mentioned an arrangement, I believe it was a TIF district, involving a high-profile sports team in your city. Can you tell us a little bit about how you set that up?
Sure. And going backwards first, you know, the first thing when we were going through the 80s, strategic investment was the key. And then once we were able to do that, before there was anything called niche industries, we started to focus in where we could be a leader in making sure that those partnership with our corporations, with our state government, with the federal government to make sure those were stabilized, while at the same time those foundations were holding our heads above the water and investing more, doubling down on culture and arts and not amenities, but necessities that made us Pittsburgh. We didn't lose those. I'm looking at this beautiful building in front of me in Detroit. We didn't lose those great icons. We protected them. And then the changes started to occur later on. It took a while. Now we're at this new phase. This is the next part because, you know, Pittsburgh has no problem attracting Google, Microsoft, Intel, Disney, the list goes on and on. Google has 600 engineers and they're hiring another 600, making Pittsburgh one of their largest campus. But there's an entire population that has no ladder of opportunity to any of that. And that's the part that you're seeing in every city in America. I call it the tale of two cities, and it is within every city. I could put this chair in my office for the next 4 years, and the parts that are doing well in Pittsburgh are going to continue to do great. But I have to work double in order to try to make a few people have that same opportunity. So when we were looking at the Pittsburgh Penguins and the new arena that they have, and they were looking at a TIF in order to be able to develop out an arena district. Every city has them. What we did is we changed the rules on the TIF, and we took part of the proceeds that will be used to build out that area, and we moved it a mile up the road into a part where August Wilson and Josh Gibson are from, the Hill District. I may remember Hill Street Blues. It was modified after Pittsburgh's Hill District, a historically, culturally rich African-American part of America. And the funding will go to restore the Granada Theater. It will go to create a job work program so when those buildings are being built, folks from the neighborhood will have an opportunity for the jobs. It will go for new housing initiatives where we're changing the model of housing so the funds that come back through a voucher program with the federal government don't go to an out-of-state developer who builds a warehouse of poverty, but instead will be used in a program to hire people from the neighborhood to learn how to hang drywall, to learn how to put on a new roof, to learn electrical, and will restore home after home in that neighborhood. And that voucher will then go to a family to have equity and to own their own home. And we're creating the models around the traditional tools that we have and slightly adjusting them so that those ladders of opportunity become a part of the new Pittsburgh that's being born. And the biggest tool with that, and what we just announced yesterday, is our goal to create a prenatal to pre-K program in the city for every kid in the city to have an opportunity to start out of the gate equally. We already provide every student in Pittsburgh Public Schools a $40,000 scholarship if they graduate. What we want to do now is to take care of them from prenatal to pre-K too.
Congratulations. Our time is running short, so I want to move to a little bit more of a lightning round. On the topic of technology and data, you both seem like data-driven chief executives. Your offices both use Twitter. Mayor Peduto, can you briefly just tell us what has your experience been using Twitter to communicate with your citizens and your constituency?
Very simple, at Bill Peduto, by the way. And I tweet a lot, so I'll be taking up a lot of your space if you decide to follow. It's been both a blessing and a bane of my existence. It has been the most wonderful ideas and the harshest, meanest things ever said to me. And I love it. So I love it in its pure form. I wouldn't change it. My girlfriend gets upset because when I do read something really mean, I go back. Not only will I look to see who you are, but I'll look at your photos to see if I know
Of course, yes. The technology that's available is really transforming the way that mayors' offices interact with their constituencies. And on a personal level, for both of you, very quickly, in 30 seconds, can you tell us what it's like to report to City Hall each day on a personal level, given the challenges, the particular challenges of your post-industrial cities?
I was born, raised, live, and will die in Pittsburgh. It's my love, and I have the greatest job that I'll ever have in my life, which is kind of disappointing because there will never be anything later in life that will give me this much of a challenge or this much joy.
Well, it's inspiring.
I'm born and raised in Eindhoven. I lived for a long time in Amsterdam. It was my constituency when I was a member of the Dutch Parliament. But, well, what has encouraged me most is the recognition internationally spoken. What I told you about, the mid-90s, 75,000 jobs were left. Now we are 160,000 jobs, 60,000 are related to high tech, and it's going great. It's going great. And in New York, they called us to be the most intelligent community in the world. And I came back and I said, that's not true. We're not a smart city. This is about smart people. We're doing smart things together and find each other and trust each other and making a city livable and give it a new future. And that's the real spirit, what I find in my city. So there, later on, we saw that the highest patents in the world and that kind of things, that are all kind of awards, but it's all about the people and that they encourage each other, that they find each other. And that is something, I think, what you've done in your city is similar. You can talk about your city and about real estate developments, etc., but if there is no click between people, it will not be successful. So bring people together. And that's something we talked it out, and we want to release something that is new. And well, I go to Peter Diamandis next week. Peter Diamandis is the founder of the Singularity University in California. And he said, well, you see in companies and in cities, there is so much intelligent power, but I must tell you something, there is more power, intelligent power, outside of your city and outside of your company. So when you find each other together, you will have more result. And I think there are regenerating cities, 18th in the United States. There are several in Europe. And I think it would be a great idea if the mayors of these cities will have a platform and that they can help each other to exchange experiences like we did here today. And that's something we discussed. And well, I'm very glad that we can bring this idea here together.
So this sounds like pretty much of an announcement. We're breaking some news here. Is that correct, Gordon? That would be a fantastic follow-on to this kind of gathering. Well, please join me in thanking these two terrific chief executives, Mayor Rob Van Gijzel and Mayor Bill Peduto of Pittsburgh. Thank you.